Hi and welcome. I'm Jeremy Hollow, the founder of Listen and Learn Research, and joining me is Sky Winslow. What we're going to do today is just get underneath the surface of Pinterest. If you joined us last week, we covered a bunch of interesting, really fascinating exploration into some of the power of Pinterest, both the sort of, we think about it as this conversion engine, this amazingly powerful social media tool that brands can use to understand what's really important to people and how it sort of drives their purchase intent and sort of really shapes that funnel of how people are thinking about getting inspired all the way through to purchase. What we're going to do today, I'm going to hand over to Sky in a second. She's going to talk you through a bit more about the methodology. Pinterest is a bit of a black box and a little bit difficult to understand exactly, right, how can we learn from it? What's going on in it? How are people being influenced? And I tasked the team sort of 5 or 6 months ago to really look at this kind of topic and these kind of more visual social data sources to see whether we could design an approach to actually use it to understand consumer behavior rather than just to sort of think about it as a keyword tool, to actually to use the post that people were sharing to understand what's important to them and how it's sort of shaping their decision. And look, we're really delighted to be able to share that kind of stuff with you. Our goal is to try and just get more people to understand how social media is helping to shape these sort of purchase decisions and to give you some of the tools that you can then start understanding it for yourself. So drop any questions at all in the chat. We're going to be sharing this deck as we shared the sort of the findings deck last week. So get in contact with us if you'd like a copy of either of those. And without any further ado, Sky, over to you.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. As we said last week, we promised we'd share more details about our method and approach to using Pinterest to learn more about consumers. And while Pinterest might be a bit of a black box, we are not. We think it's really beneficial for everyone to know how we do things and not just the output of what we're doing. So here we go. As we mentioned last week, Pinterest is a visual discovery machine known for driving high-value conversions, and people are spending more money on Pinterest than they are on any other social network. But unfortunately, most brands are not making the most of it. In 2021, the average number of monthly users was 478 million. And to put this in context, if Pinterest were a country, it would surpass the US in size. According to Pinterest's internal data, visitors are 7 times more likely to purchase products they've pinned on Pinterest. And they're 3 times more likely to click through to a brand's website. Of course, these stats do not apply to all pins and all boards. Some actually do better than this, and the secret sauce is engagement. If consumers are engaged with your content, they're more likely to buy your products. It's just that simple. So instead of saying Pinterest isn't working for us, or maybe the issue is your pins are not connecting with the consumer, which begs the question, how can brands create Pinterest content that will appeal to consumers? So Pinterest is not just a bunch of middle-aged women in the United States that enjoy quilting, though my aunt quilts and she does use Pinterest. The visitor's profile of Pinterest has changed significantly over the past few years. Yes, women still make up most of the visitors, but they also hold the purse strings and they make a lot of purchases. However, we've also seen an increase in the number of male pinners on Pinterest. And we know that there are differences in the way men and women search for information, compare products online, and ultimately make purchases. So all that information needs to be built into pin design. The visual nature of the content of Pinterest makes it more relatable across a broad range of cultures. And Pinterest is currently in 37 markets, and they offer buyable pins, which are pins where you can actually click an item in the actual pin and buy the product immediately. They offer that particular type of pin in 13 of those markets. And the US is no longer the dominant market for Pinterest, with over 50% of active users now living outside of the United States. So what can brands gain from Pinterest? Well, if the content on your pins is engaging, you are likely to enjoy a positive ripple effect. And with that ripple effect comes increased awareness of your brand and the ability to reach new audiences, increased traffic back to your website, browsers turning into buyers, visitors getting the content they want, and visitors sharing the content they love with others. So Pinterest offers a host of tools to help marketers create engaging pins, including lists of search terms most commonly used on the site. And some of the search terms also provide clues regarding visitors' goals, their motivations, their pain points, and their challenges. So, for example, if a visitor types how to decorate a long, narrow bedroom with only a window, or how to buy a bed for a place like that, well, we certainly feel their pain and we know what they're up against. So, why are more brands not using Pinterest? You've got us. We honestly don't know why. It is a great platform for exposing consumers to your products and services in a non-intrusive way. You don't have to deal with the overly cheerful salesperson. You literally can just browse. And Pinterest has developed several performance metrics so brands can measure the success, including number of times your pin or ad appears on screen, number of times the pin was saved, number of the times the pin was clicked, number of times a website within a pin was clicked. They also provide guides on what types of pins seem to do best in terms of engagement, many of which we discussed in the previous presentation, such as idea pins with video. We think the barrier to more brands using Pinterest is literally just visual data overload and not knowing where to start. However, we're not convinced that the metrics Pinterest currently provides is enough information for brands to design an engaging pin. We think that brands need more. The problem is, how can you spot meaningful trends? According to a recent McKinsey report, which I love the name, it was called The Quickening, the pandemic has compressed trends that usually last a few years to only lasting a few short months. And social media is behind this condensing of trends for sure. Now more than ever, it's critical that you understand your audience and the customer journey. What are customers looking for online? Where are they in the decision process? What's holding them back from making a purchase? And what are the hottest trends in your space? And can you react quickly enough before they change again? Dozens of companies claim they answer these questions for you, relying solely on key search terms and AI. Every quarter, and sometimes even more often than that, we evaluate many of these tools. And at this point, we're not convinced that these tools can answer these types of questions. We believe only real humans can spot nuances and meaningful trends. AI can group images aesthetically, perhaps by color, such as the pictures to the left, but it can't tell you what these groups mean. The same applies for key search terms. You need a human touch for deeper understanding. So how do people use Pinterest? Pinterest is made up of pins and boards. Pins are images created and shared on Pinterest, though you can pull pictures from outside the platform. And boards are ways to organize or save your pins. And as we mentioned last week, so like if you're looking for inspiration for your kitchen and your living room, you can create separate boards for each room and then save the relevant pins to each. And those pins of inspiration could be repins from Pinterest or images you find elsewhere. Or if you're like my colleague Hannah, you could also just lurk around and never pin anything. Pins and boards are often used as a jumping off point for significant renovation projects, and more than one Hollywood star has claimed to use Pinterest to collect inspiration for building their dream home. Just a few weeks ago, Gwyneth Paltrow, in an interview for Architectural Digest, mentioned that she found inspiration on Pinterest for a wet bar she had recently put in her new home in Montecito. Do-it-yourselfers tend to create separate boards for each room in their house and then share those ideas with close friends and family members, while professional interior designers use Pinterest to share private boards with their clients. And what we're really witnessing here is Pinterest has become a curated marketplace where brands, designers, and bloggers and the media can advertise their products and services. So the pandemic lockdown, the shelter in place, just generally not being able to do anything outside of one's residence for so long, led many people to look at their homes in a new, harsh light. people immediately started wishing their homes were just a little, or maybe even a lot different. Pinterest's monthly views during the pandemic spiked as people sought inspiration for their renovation projects, and consumers could easily order many of the items directly from Pinterest, at least in some markets. I would love to know the percentage of households that have a round mirror, who had a round mirror before the pandemic, and how many have one now, because pins of round mirrors are everywhere on Pinterest. So now that we're crawling out of the pandemic, there's some thought that people want unique items for their home. And Pinterest has some ideas on what those things should be or might be based on a handful of emerging search terms that visitors have been lately typing into Pinterest. For example, they predict interest in massage rooms, luxury cat and dog rooms, and biophilic interiors that incorporate nature and natural lighting. So we wanted to see if those trends are in fact materializing in terms of what do-it-yourselfers are pinning, or is there a disconnect between what the do-it-yourselfer interior designers want and what the market is offering? We also wanted to create a systematic way to help other industry segments identify product trends and better understand how their target customers are being influenced. So let's dive in. These slides aren't terribly sexy, but this is the inner workings. First, we explored the topic of home decor on Pinterest. We found 19 terms associated with home decor, and then several additional search terms related to subcategories of home decor. These are the keywords you can tag on your pins to ensure you reach people as they search for a specific idea on Pinterest. So, for example, if you're promoting living room furniture, Pinterest suggests targeting people searching for living room decor or home decor ideas. So we used these keywords as a foundation for a code frame that we built in Excel to identify what visitors are pinning on Pinterest. Then we used a Google search term tool called SERPstat to more fully explore all the key search terms associated with do-it-yourself home decor. We also reviewed the top questions people ask when using search term related to do-it-yourself interior design, and we pulled down a list of URLs associated with interior design. So at this point, it felt like we had the keyword universe of everything related to do-it-yourself interior design. But before we could streamline the list to use for our code frame, we had to make sure we also had all the search terms related to these so-called emerging trends. For this part, we literally just sat down and read articles posted on the top URLs, about 40 articles. And we didn't stop reading until we felt like there was absolutely nothing new to learn. We were just reading the same thing over and over again. AI can't do this. Then we took this massive list of keywords and coded a small set of Pinterest boards to identify the must-have codes and eliminate those likely to produce few mentions. When we were designing the code frame, we noted other things we could capture from a Pinterest account, such as the number of followers, number of views, pins created, pins saved, type of account, type of pin created, whether pins were populated with people or pets. And in about a third of the cases, we could also identify the gender and the age of the person. This was primarily for bloggers, interior designers, and the do-it-yourselfer audiences. We also recorded the do-it-yourself topics addressed on pins that were created and saved. We also noted various types of Pinterest accounts in the do-it-yourself interior space, including brands providing inspiration and links to their products like B&Q, Wayfair, Crate & Barrel, interior designers making interior spaces functional, safe, and beautiful, bloggers, many of which utilize affiliate partnerships and earn commissions by referring sales to brands, design magazines, most of which are hard copy and online, such as Architectural Digest and House Beautiful, and then also the online-only Domino. So these four, we are calling them the market. And then visitors who share inspiration and ideas and pins of their renovation or their decorating projects, we are calling them the consumer. So after we had explored Pinterest and we had kind of a semblance of a code frame, we'd started to generate a sample for the project using the same search terms, and we filtered the sample focusing only on Pinterest accounts. This effort produced roughly 400 accounts, and we were pleasantly surprised that the list included a really good mix of boards representing the market segments that were mentioned in the previous slide and individual do-it-yourself accounts, including a do-it-yourself account with only 2 pins and 1 follower. So we really had the whole gamut. But to be sure we had a good mix of boards representing the market, we went back to our initial article reading and added any names we came across. Thankfully, most of the names were already part of the list that were generated using key search terms, and a few that weren't didn't have Pinterest accounts. I did find it interesting that the ones that didn't have Pinterest account, there was a really good chance that they had decided to go the Instagram way instead. Then we randomly selected 200 out of the 400 Pinterest sites. We randomized the list and just started immersing ourselves in the boards. We recorded our first impressions, our second impressions after looking further. We noted how the pins were presented or grouped into boards, the types of pins created, shared, or repinned. Where possible, we captured who was pinning, like the gender and the age. We also noted the do-it-yourself topics being promoted and the general color palette of the objects presented. So each Pinterest account viewed was coded using 115 specific codes across 14 broad categories. In addition to the observations mentioned on the previous slide, we also captured rooms featured, macro trends like mid-century modern, Scandinavian, materials and fabrics used such as brass and leather and linen, forms presented, whether they were organic or geometric or oversized, ceiling accents, lighting, wall textures such as brick, stone, paneling, flooring, including bold tile or concrete. And also we looked at very specific trends associated with the kitchen, bathrooms, and bedrooms. To ensure consistency in the way things were being coded, we had 2 analysts code several of the same Pinterest accounts, and then we compared their codes, and we found the coding between the 2 analysts to be consistent. And also earlier in the coding process, I also revisited accounts I'd coded the previous day to see if my coding was evolving the more time I spent on Pinterest. And thankfully, my codes also remained consistent. So I know this whole idea of coding might be not making sense, but it's important to note that multiple codes could apply to a single pin. Our general approach was to first code the easy things, like the number of followers, the monthly views, the type of posters, things that you get at the account level. And then we recorded our first impressions of the pins on the board, similar to how a visitor on a mission would assess the site. Then we looked at the pins created and the pins shared. And if an account had separate boards where groups of pins were located, like they had a kitchen and a living room, well, then we looked at all the pins within each board related to home decor. The minute we caught ourselves being on an account and kind of like leaning into the screen, trying to find something more to record, that was our signal it was time to move on. In other words, we tried our best to squeeze everything we could out of each account. If we didn't see it, it's very likely a visitor on a mission wouldn't see it either. So once the data was coded, we reviewed the results to make sense of it all. We looked for patterns in the data and cut the data various ways, including by the type of poster, the age, gender, and then we began to kind of build a story and identify areas of future qualitative analysis. Most importantly, could we answer the question we set out to answer in the beginning? Are the trends Pinterest is predicting in the do-it-yourself space coming to fruition? and what do-it-yourselfers are pinning. When we cut the data by poster, it became immediately apparent that there was a big disconnect in terms of the pins the market is creating on Pinterest and what do-it-yourselfers want, which was the topic of the report that we presented last week, and we're happy to share it with you if you're interested. This disconnect was a huge red flag. In several instances, the market is not creating pins that appeal to the do-it-yourself market. And therefore, those strong conversion rates I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar are not going to happen. When we recoded the data going from one Pinterest account to the next, this disconnect was not apparent. I mean, one minute you're coding an interior design site, and the next minute you're coding a small do-it-yourselfer with just a few pins that they're trying to redo their loft. And the disconnect was not obvious to us visually, just immersing ourselves. We did not see this disconnect until we crunched the data, and then it became immediately apparent. But the good news is, not only did we see the disconnect, we could quickly tell what pins were engaging and which ones were not. So, I think that's the best news, is that we were able to get a sense of how to use this version immersion part, plus a very hefty code frame to help marketers create engaging pins on Pinterest. Pins that are shared, pins that are repinned, and ultimately lead to consumer purchases. Thanks very much for your time.
Sky, thank you so much. That was fascinating. A couple of questions in. First one from Mary Beth Levin. Is the buy-in pin available in the US market?
Yes, definitely. I know it's available in the US and in the UK. After that, I'd have to check.
No worries. And another question, great question in from Anita. What role can Pinterest play for brands in combination with other social media tools? Any learnings in the customer journey?
Well, not that Pinterest likes this, but a lot of pins on Pinterest are actually created in another social platform, such as Instagram or even TikTok. So there is an interaction between the different social media platforms. So if you click a pin on Pinterest and immediately it's a TikTok video, well, then you're eventually going to end up on TikTok as well. So there is kind of some back and forth. And in some cases, and I'm really not sure why they do this, some brands actually, every single pin that they have, when you click it, it takes you to their Instagram page. So, but there's no new additional information coming from the Instagram page. So I'm not really sure. I haven't quite figured out why they're doing it, but there is definitely some synergy going on between the different social platforms. Do you think I answered that question?
Yeah, I'm going to just build on that if I can. I think different social channels play and talk to the different stages of the customer journey really nicely. So if we take the sort of McKinsey model of that kind of like circular buy, where we start with sort of building category awareness, then into consideration, purchase, post-purchase, and that kind of loyalty loop. I think what we're seeing, and what I think makes Pinterest so fascinating here is, and that's why we kind of term it the conversion engine, is you've got people who are actively looking for inspiration, looking for ideas. And that's really rare because it's so concentrated in that space. There's really no other reason why you would go to Pinterest. So if I'm thinking about, so my recent forays have been around just trying to eat more healthily, because hey, it's January and vegan and all that kind of stuff. But I was looking for salad ideas, and I'm actively looking for ideas. I want someone to tell me what to do. And if I find the right thing, I will then follow through and purchase. It's not winsome. It's not kind of, I'm scrolling through the TikTok ephemera for entertainment. I'm not just engaging in some kind of political debate on Twitter. I'm there because I've got a really discrete need that I need fulfilling. And that's what I think makes it so powerful in terms of this conversion engine. And I think for brands, it's like, okay, you've got this. I think the whole point of what we're trying to get across here is you've got an audience in the millions, hundreds of millions. You've got the ability of this channel to be just so powerful in terms of conversion. And then so actually it's beholden on us as like researchers and marketers to understand what's working in that space. What is it that consumers want? Not just what brands are broadcasting, but what is consumers actually interested in? And then how do you stand out amongst that kind of market? And so there's lots of interesting things. I suppose one thing that sprung to my mind, I was thinking about this morning, is just the idea of complementary goods. So you could be thinking about, I saw an example of, so if you type in moving to Hong Kong, there's a private medical insurance provider just using that space. So what goes alongside things? I'm looking for a barbecue. Okay, right, here's food recipes. And there's lots of interesting ways. And I was talking to a B2B supplier yesterday, and we had a really fascinating beginnings of a conversation about how they might use this, because they recognized it as a really powerful space for entrepreneurs to start thinking about gathering ideas. So really long question. And just one more question in, what's the best tool approach to research upcoming trends?
Well, listen and learn.
Yeah. I think our argument is that Pinterest would just have some tools, but they do it once a year. And we would argue that it's quite forward looking and based on search data. And I think for us, and we talked about it this time and last week, we feel it misses quite a lot. And I think the methodology is skewed towards just one way of thinking about the data. So I would do what Sky's laid out, just do the legwork. And we can help you do it, obviously, because that's what we do, or give us a chat and we'll talk you through the methodology in a bit more detail. But it's a combination of what you can get out of Pinterest, what you can get using their ad tool, their planning tool to tell you what keywords are popping. And then it's a bit of qualitative visual analysis to help you understand actually what trends are popping in your particular area. And look, this stuff you don't have to boil the ocean to do this. It's accessible, it's doable. You can get a great return within 2 to 3 weeks on some of this stuff. So yeah, give it a go, give it a shot.
Done in 2 weeks. So
yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Super. Any more questions? Got a couple of seconds and then we'll wrap it up.
Jeremy, there was one thing you mentioned that kind of reminded me of something that I should point out, was a lot of the do-it-yourselfers were creators of pins, but not necessarily for interior design. They weren't taking pictures of their sofas. They might have been creators for something else entirely. For example, there were a lot of people that were really interested in recipes, and they would publish their own recipe pins, like their dishes they had completed. And 9 times out of 10, if you went over to their boards that they shared or where they repinned things, it was the kitchen. All they cared about was the kitchen. So, just focusing on people that are focused on interior design, you would have missed these people. By going after the people that are interested in recipes, 9 times out of 10, they're also very interested in having the most functional kitchen possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Sky, thanks again for a really engaging session, really interesting. As we said at the beginning, the report that we did on the insights that we found about the trends, that's available, and this deck too, with some more detail in it about the methodology, that's available too. Our passion is about helping organizations understand consumers better by looking at the things they put across on social. And our viewpoint is that getting immersed in it and using people to understand people is really the way you unlock a lot of that value, and you get under the skin and under the detail of what's important to people and what drives them. So would welcome a conversation with anyone about getting into that and sort of helping you think about how that could work. So by all means, give us a shout in the chat or contact us later, and we can always send the reports over to you. Thanks again for your time. Sky, thanks again. Awesome session. See you next time.